Good evening. I trust you've had a fruitful day. I do not say happy. I hope it has been happy. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Buddha, the Blessed Noble and fully self-awakened one. So we had a bit of magic yesterday, but I just love the way the Buddha sort of grounds it into I'm aware of feelings, aware of perceptions, and so on. And if you were to choose one word which expresses the whole purpose of the Buddha's practice, it would be to discover the nature of sati, awareness. Satipanya, intuitive awareness. So now this discourse, the Bhumija Sutta, the Bhumija Discourse, is concerned with aspiration. And we have here the quadrilemma, if you remember, to be, not to be, both to be and not to be, and this wonderful neither to be nor not to be. So we're using that for a different purpose here. So this is the Buddha's back in Rajgir, which is the capital of Bimbisara, sitting on the Ganges. And with Venerable Bhumija is going his rounds, and he meets Prince Jayasena, and he seems to be an uncle of this prince. And when the prince sees him, the usual courteous and amiable talk, and then he says, there are some recluses and Brahmins who make such assertions and hold such views as this. If one makes an aspiration and one leads the holy life, by which is meant here the monastic life or the celibate life, one is unable to procure any fruit. If one makes no aspiration, one is not able to procure any fruit. If you make an aspiration and then you make no aspiration, remember it's both of them. Make an aspiration and not make an aspiration and lead the holy life, you're unable to procure the fruit. And if neither makes an aspiration nor makes no aspiration and leads the holy life, one is unable to procure any fruit. Now, even though I've said this is the monastic life, actually, as we will see, it's basically the Eightfold Path. Now, what Bhumija says is, or answers, I've not heard or learnt that from the Blessed One's own lips, Prince, but it is possible that the Blessed One might say thus, if one makes an aspiration and one leads the holy life unwisely, one is unable to procure any fruit. And so he goes through the four of them. So, it makes no aspiration and leads the holy life unwisely, then one will not procure any fruit. There won't be a good outcome. And so it is with one who makes an aspiration and makes no aspiration, or neither makes an aspiration nor not makes an aspiration. So they won't make it. However, he says, if one makes an aspiration and leads the holy life wisely, then one will procure fruit. And so he goes through the quadrilemma. So the difference here is an aspiration and to lead the holy life in a wise way. Now, I've not learnt this from the Blessed One's own lips, but it is possible that the Blessed One would answer as I have stated. The prince. Now, if Master Bhumija's teacher speaks thus, if he declares thus, then it certainly seems that the Venerable Bhumija's teacher stands ahead of all the ordinary recluses and Brahmins. So, and then Prince Jayasena served the Venerable One from his own dish of milk rice, which was a bit of a delicacy. And after his arms round, etc., Bhumija went back to the monastery, and there was the Buddha. And this is what he said, of course, to the Blessed One. I hope, having told him, he said, I hope I've answered as you would have answered. I said what has been said by the Blessed One and did not misrepresent him with what is contrary to fact. So that's what he's hoping. And then there's this lovely sentence that we've had before in many discourses. I hope I explained in accordance with the Dharma in such a way that nothing which provides a ground for censure can be legitimately deduced from my assertion. Yeah, I just find that sentence rather chuckling. Now, the Buddha replies, oh, absolutely, surely, you've answered as I would have answered in so many words, you see. And then the Buddha says, when recluses and Brahmins have a wrong view, wrong intention, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong effort, wrong mindfulness, and wrong concentration. So there's your eightfold path. If they make an aspiration and they lead the holy life, they're unable to procure the fruit. So an aspiration, a desire. So one joins an order or one joins the practice of Buddhism with an aspiration. It might be a simple aspiration to lead a more easy life, to try and overcome one's anxieties and angers and all that sort of stuff. It can be just on that very simple basis. It could be to improve relationships, and it could have this far-reaching aspiration to become fully liberated from all suffering, to achieve nibbana. But here he says that if you're not on the right path, it's an absolute waste of time. Because he says the wrong path is not a proper method for procuring fruit. Okay, so now we have these usual metaphors to try and get this across. Supposing a man needing oil, seeking oil, wandering in search of oil, were to heap up gravel in a tub, sprinkle it all over with water and press it, then if he'd made an aspiration and acted thus, he would be unable to procure any oil. And then he goes through the quadrilemma. If he hadn't, if he both had and hadn't, and if he neither had nor hadn't. Because it's not the proper method for procuring oil. Now, suppose a man needing milk, seeking milk, wandering in search of milk, were to pull a recently calved cow by the horn, thinking to milk her by the horn. Well, of course, he made an aspiration. I want milk. And he'd gone through the quadrilemma. He made no aspiration and so on. But he still pulled on the horn. Then this is not the proper method for procuring milk, and therefore there be no fruit. Supposing a man needing butter, seeking butter, wandering in search of butter, were to pour water into a churn and churn it with a churning stick. Now, he made an aspiration, I want butter, but of course, all the ingredients are wrong and the methodology is not quite right, and therefore, this is not the proper method for procuring butter, and he would, of course, be disappointed. Supposing a man needing fire, seeking fire, wandering in search of fire, were to take an upper fire stick and rub a wet, sappy piece of wood with it, then no matter whether he made an aspiration or not, both aspiration and no aspiration, or neither an aspiration nor not an aspiration, then because it's not the proper method of procuring fire, he would not get what he wants. Now, the opposite now, of course, is true. Those recluses and Brahmins who have right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, if they make an aspiration and lead the holy life, they are able to procure fruit. Now, even if you don't make an aspiration, but you lead the good life, right? Then they are able to procure fruit. So this means that you might say to yourself, I'm doing this for this reason, and because you're following the right path, it should bear some fruit. But even if you had a sort of hazy idea of what you wanted or didn't want anything in particular, but you led the good life, here the holy life, remember, is the Eightfold Path. Well, we're all following the Eightfold Path. So if you lead the good life without any particular aspiration, just that will lead you to a good result. Now, this reminds me of sailors going down the side of Africa, and often they would come across the doldrums, and the doldrums were the places where there was no wind, so that the ship would seem to be just stuck in the middle of the ocean. And it was a frightening time, obviously, for sailors, but unwittingly, of course, the flow of the ocean was gently carrying them down the side of Africa. So that's what I understand by this, that even though a person doesn't have any particular aspiration, doesn't particularly want anything from the practice, but still does the practice with right view, right action, right livelihood, etc., that will gently carry them down the path of enlightenment or awakening. So now, of course, we have the metaphors. Needing oil, seeking oil, wandering in search of oil, were to heap up sesamum seed, sesamum flour in a tub, sprinkle it all over and press it. So this is how you get oil from sesamum flour. So there's a little trick for you. So, and of course, because he's done a right method, then he'll bear the fruit, even though he makes no aspiration, or neither makes no aspiration nor no aspiration. Same with milk, needing milk, seeking milk, wandering in search of milk, were to pull a recently calved cow by her udder. Then, of course, he would have the milk. And then suppose a man needing butter, seeking butter, wandering in search of butter, were to pour curd into a churn and churn it with a churning stick. Then, because he'd made the aspiration, if he made no aspiration, if he both made an aspiration and made no aspiration, and if he neither made an aspiration nor made no aspiration and acted thus, he would still be able to procure butter. So that's the point, you see. Why? Because it's the proper method. Supposing a man needing fire, seeking fire, wandering in search of fire, were to make the upper fire stick and rub a dry, sapless piece of wood with it. Then, if he made the aspiration, or even if he made no aspiration, though it's a bit difficult to think that you go to the trouble of rubbing sticks with aspiration to make fire, but even so, and if both made an aspiration or made no aspiration, neither made an aspiration nor no aspiration and acted upon it, he would thus be able to procure fire. Why is that? Because this is the proper method for procuring fire. Now, the Buddha says, Bhumija, if these four similes had occurred to you with reference to Prince Jayasena, he would have spontaneously acquired confidence in you, and being confident would have shown his confidence in you. So this is, I know this is still an age where stories, metaphors, ideas can have seemingly a great effect on people. I'm not so sure that works for us these days so much. We're so scientific, inverted commas, so logical and precise. And Venerable Sir, says Bhumija, how could these similes have occurred to me with reference to Prince Jayasena, as they occur to the Blessed One, since they are spontaneous and have never been heard before? So I think we can take it that the Buddha was very good at offering these images, these similes, these metaphors to balance the sort of dry explanation of his teachings. This is what the Blessed One said, and the Venerable Bhumija was satisfied and, of course, delighted in the Blessed One's words. So I think that's there's an interesting point there about aspiration. If we just follow the path, then that will take us. And it sort of reminds me really of beginner's mind. This is the great Zen saying, where a person comes into the practice with no idea, no idea at all. And that was similar to me, really. And because you've got no idea and because you've got no big aim, you just do the practice as a beginner with wide eyes and an open mouth. Then, of course, you get the benefit of the practice, because the practice itself is what's doing the work. So anyway, I hope this discourse will have inspired you, not to make too many not to worry whether you have an aspiration or not, and that you will continue following the Eightfold Path and become fully liberated from all suffering sooner rather than later. So we can do a little practice.